And we're live. Hey everyone, how are you guys doing? Welcome to the Pokey S&P podcast. And as always, we appreciate you guys for joining us today. We have an exciting discussion today about the Pokemon hobby. We are pulling back the curtains on what's really happening in the Pokemon market. From a graded Gold Star Rayquaza PSA 10 that's showing signs of repair or alteration, to auctions that are being quietly manipulated to drive up market prices. We're bringing all of it into the light with proof and receipts. But before we dive into those stories, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Because something's shifting in the Pokemon market. With prices spiking and the 30th anniversary on the horizon, some people are convinced that the 30th anniversary will actually be the peak of the Pokemon market. What are your thoughts on that, Jesse?
Yeah, first of all, I'm so excited for this live stream, and this will be one of those times if you watch this live stream, hopefully in 6 to 12 months from now, you'll be thinking, hey, I'm glad I watched that live stream because I dodged a lot of bullets there, and I really got a lot of value from Jesse and Poke-san and some of the things they told me to buy, sell, and hold, which we'll talk about later on. So you really want to stick around and hear that because we talk about not only the state of the market and there's two specific things that we want to talk about ponchos and a PSA 10 Gold Star Rayquaza altered card, but also specifics in different categories of the market should we or will we buy, sell, or hold in this impending crash is what we like to call it. But yeah, to go back to your question, one of the main things that annoys me when I hear people talking about this Pokemon market in 2025 is everyone seems to think that the 30th anniversary is this magical time where the entire economy, the entire Pokemon economy, just magically all agree to buy or sell at max value. And what that means is people are saying like, oh, 30th anniversary next year. I'm going to hold my cards until then, and then I'll sell it. That's when it's at its peak. That means whenever you sell your card before or after the 30th anniversary, it's going to be worth less. And just magically, everyone agrees on that day to not only sell a max value, but buy a max value as well. It's just a very naive way of looking at how business and the market works. And it is the most ridiculous thing ever because there isn't historical proof to show that the peak of the market is at the 30th anniversary. There's a lot of catalysts that led to the last boom, which is in 2021. But if people remember, actually lived through it, the peak of the market was actually closer to the October before. So 4 to 5 months before, right after the Logan Paul box break, that was kind of like when everything was at its highest. And usually by the time the 25th anniversary came, it was already kind of like softening up. And by the time it came, and right after, it really kind of like fell off a cliff. So anybody that's saying, oh, 30th anniversary is going to be at its absolute peak is just a lazy way of thinking about it or has no experience investing in Pokemon or in other markets. I firmly believe we are already past the peak or just at its peak. Obviously, there's still some things going up and there's still a lot of things going down, like the modern alt arts, some sealed product. But I do think we're at the point where the crash is imminent. I hate to say it this way because people will interpret it as saying, oh, you're saying it's going to crash. That means Pokemon is going to die. No, we're just saying the cycle is about to shift, right? Or it's already shifting before our eyes. And it's inevitable. Like, no matter how much you love Pokemon right now, we're at the point where things are about to change. And if you don't prepare for that change, you're probably going to get left behind and get burned really hard. So we're going to talk about this as if you're not just collecting or if you're just investing. Like, we're going to give you unbiased advice on like whether you should buy or sell a certain card. But like for me, for example, spoiler alert, if I'm gonna say sell gold stars at this point, doesn't mean I'm not gonna sell any of my gold stars because that's my personal collection. I personally don't care if it goes up and down, and it's not gonna affect my life, my pristine gold star set. But I'm talking about in a general sense. If you're holding a lot of gold stars and it doesn't have sentimental value to you, you might want to look into selling them now and buying them back in a few months when the market experiences a correction, if that makes sense. So we're going to talk about a lot of these things and take our emotions out of it, but don't take it wrong. Like, we're still collectors first. There's a lot of things that we collect that we don't care if it goes up, down, or sideways, but we still want to give you unbiased advice when it comes to buying and selling, so you understand that, hey, like, this might go down in value in the next 6 months or so. So maybe I want to sell it now and then buy it back in the future, if that's something you're willing to do.
Yes. So let's rewind a bit. So many people think that the 30th anniversary will be the peak of the market, just like the 20th or the 25th anniversary. But is that really how it works? Let's kind of think back and rewind a bit. Back in 2016, the 20th anniversary was a big year, but not because of the anniversary set generations. It was because of Pokemon Go that sent interest through the roof. You can literally see the spike in the Google Trend analysis starting July 2016, the release month of Pokemon Go. The same thing happened in 2020. Everyone remembers the 25th anniversary, but the real boom came from outside this TCG, the pandemic, Logan Paul, and the massive media attention. The cards people were actually buying, Champion's Path, Vivid Voltage, Battle Styles, or Shiny Fates, do you consider those to be good sets looking back? So what actually moved the market is not the calendar date or the anniversary logo. It was the events that took place outside of the Pokemon TCG that made it possible. So the 30th anniversary the next peak? We don't really particularly think that it's going to be the peak. That's what you're pretty much saying, right?
Yeah, that's right. By the way, Limited GIF said, start with Jesse showing us a gold star. So here's my pristine, I believe, Pop 1 gold star Metagross. Wow. I just randomly picked this card because I just saw that a PSA 10 sold for 21 grand. Which is kind of insane because it used to be, I believe, 3K just like 8 months ago.
That's crazy how much it has spiked.
Yeah, that's an example of what's been happening and what will happen in the future. So Kang said, your analysis is baseless. Ooh. Apply technical analysis or prediction before you wreck someone. So again, like, just disclaimer, this is not financial advice. You make your decisions. This is our opinion. Whether or not you think it's baseless, that's literally up to you to decide. But we're going to try and provide as much evidence and analysis as possible. Most likely, it's not going to be like full-on financial technical analysis that you will see from like stock markets, but it's from our experience. And I do have experience investing in multiple industries, from real estate to tech companies, startups, Pokemon. So, I would like to think I know a little bit about investing, and that's how I was able to create this life for myself. But obviously, I'm not always right. Neither is Poke-san. So whatever we talk about is just our opinion, and it is up to you to decide after hearing what we talk about on whether or not you want to do what we do. And again, we're not telling you to. You're gonna hear from us because I'm gonna talk about a lot of things I urge you guys to sell when they're a big part of my collection. So it is. I like to think I'm unbiased, and it's not to my financial benefit to tell people, hey, like, there's a crash that's about to happen. You should look into selling a lot of your collection. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with selling some cards at the right time. It's not always about hold. If you sell, you're not a collector. That is like the dumbest thing, because most of us don't have unlimited funds to buy our collection. So if we don't sell at the right time, that means you have to keep putting in your hard-earned money from your day job or your other sources of income. And usually that's not very sustainable for a collector in the long term. So selling it at the right time and then buying them back at the right time usually is will help your collection journey. Whether you're a pure collector, an investor, or a flipper, or whatever it is.
Right. Well, we can take a break from this topic and we can pivot and talk about some of the hottest high-end auctions, like the Poncho Pikachus. Would you like to talk about that? We can pivot a little bit.
Yeah, we can dive into that. So this is very important for us to talk about because this particular incident that happened actually happened a few months ago. So this was in April when this conversation that I had in the large Chinese group chat of 500 people happened. And I actually wanted to talk about it then, but I was kind of hesitant because I didn't really want to put this person on blast. We have done business with him and he knows where CJ shop is and knows where our address because we have shipped things back and forth, buying and selling. And at the time I wasn't sure I want to put this person on blast, and still I'm not putting him on blast because this analysis and this topic is not about this person specifically. He might be a nice person outside of doing this, but I wanted to talk about the fact that he can talk about openly shilling ponchos when he's one of the biggest poncho sellers in the world. That means a lot of other people are doing it as well. And the reason why we want to bring it to your attention is because people see all these crazy record-breaking sales and they're like, oh, this market is going crazy. I need to buy these ponchos before it gets out of hand, or like the ship sales is what I hear a lot of people talk about. And what we're here to talk about is that ship most likely will come back to you. By showing this information, and we don't want people to get burned. And again, like, we have ponchos as well. I'm not the biggest fan of ponchos just because I do see them as a pretty widely produced, like, it's pretty highly produced Japanese promo from not too long ago in 2016 and like 2018 or so. And their population is pretty high, pretty easy to grade. I personally don't think they should be five-figure cards, right? But people don't really see what's happening behind the scenes until you show them. And yeah, so again, like, we're gonna blur out this person's name. I'm not saying anything about this guy personally because I just don't know him that well. But if you do find out who he is, please don't go harass him. Just take this information for yourself and then decide whether or not you want to buy these big cards, these big, highly publicized record-breaking sales. It's just like, just take that with a grain of salt because this is happening behind the scenes.
Right.
All right. So this is in Chinese, and I've done my best to translate it. I was trying to look for Google Lens or like a better translating software to kind of like show people what this means, but it doesn't do very well because there's a lot of like slang and like things that only make sense in Chinese. So I did my best to try and translate it. You can actually confirm this yourself with somebody else that speaks Chinese. I did my best to translate exactly what's happening. And yeah, so this happened in April 17th. So this is like kind of like right at around the time where the ponchos are going crazy and the record-breaking sales started happening. Some of the ponchos went up like 200, 300%. And as you can see, this is not like a private conversation I'm having with this person. This is like one of the largest WeChat groups. Like the most amount of people you can have in your WeChat group is 500. So this is a 500-person WeChat group that specifically talks about Pokemon. So this person started saying, I have about 2 to 3 unpaid orders a week on eBay. It's super easy to do in the US. I have 4 accounts shilling everything. ZNG Emporium James can't even keep up with the banning. So I was really shocked. I was like, am I misunderstanding what you're saying? Like, you're literally bragging about shilling auctions in a public group chat. So I asked him, I was like, yeah, 4 accounts shilling auctions.
That's crazy.
And then he said, you can buy accounts in bulk in China, then buy a gift card, put $5 in, and you can start shilling. So I was like, you're shilling your own eBay card auctions. Again, second time I'm trying to confirm with him and see if I misunderstood what he was saying. Yes.
Wow.
Not just my own. I can show other people's too. And I said, don't do this. And what's surprising to me in this entire interaction is the fact that I was the only one that stood up to him and telling him, hey, like, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, am I crazy here? Like, why isn't anybody else speaking up? And the fact that he was so comfortable and justifying his actions, and the fact that he's able to talk about this openly in a 500-person group, that means, like, in his head, he's not doing anything wrong, right? That means he's probably not the only one that's doing this.
No.
But still very significant for people to see this, because I don't think a lot of people know, like, this is actually happening. And later on, I'm going to blur out his name, but I'm going to show some of his Instagram pictures to show you that this guy is no joke. He holds a lot of ponchos. He's probably like one of the most prominent poncho sellers in America. And again, we're not trying to like single him out specifically, but this is an example that we need to provide. And again, this is already public information technically, because he talked about this in a 500-person group. I'm not the only person that's seen it, but I seem to be the only person that thinks it's wrong enough to speak up against it. Right?
I mean, I'm sure other people thinks that this is just a thing that is okay to do and not speak about it, staying silent. That's dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. So as we keep talking about it, he justifies it by saying there is no choice in the US. There's 20 ponchos in auction at the same time. If you don't shill, or like if you don't bid up the auctions, the prices will crash. American buyers just don't have the spending power. In China, even if there's 20 Mario Pikachus in the same auction, the prices won't be affected that much. So this is the way that he justifies his actions. Like, hey, if I don't do this, the prices will fall. And that is artificially inflating the market price of a product, right? Because if it falls, that means there's a reason why when there's a lot of supply, prices fall. And if you're trying to like artificially trying to stop it, and he's saying there's 2 or 3 auctions that he doesn't pay a week on eBay, that is not okay, right? No. So I said, then you can try selling using other channels. Ponchos are already very liquid. And then he continues to say Chinese auction houses aren't as stupid, and they don't put multiple ponchos in the same auction. So I just said, please stop doing these things. Of course, this is my personal opinion. And then he goes on to talk about there are cards that were more expensive in the US in the last few months, the high value vintage cards. If I find the shill bidders in China, every card can be shilled to $3 million. That's why Xiao always buys auction accounts. This is the same guy that made the fake PSA slugs. Yeah, Xiao. Oh and gosh. The same guy was involved in the prototype. This guy is bad news. I don't understand why he is still active in the community. Like, anyone that does business with him, to me, there's something wrong with you. Unless like you unknowingly bought something from him. But if you know this is from him and you're still buying it, I can't support that. No. And yeah, somebody else is saying, yeah, Xiao shills bids all the cards and wins them with the same account. Very disgusting behavior. Again, like this is somebody else. As soon as Xiao is brought up, yeah, it's okay to stand up against him. But when this guy was bragging about shilling auctions openly in the account, like in the group chat, nobody talked other than myself, which is kind of crazy. And that's why I have to talk about this, because I feel like if I don't talk about it, nobody else is going to. And I know I'm creating enemies by doing this. So this is not to my own benefit, right? I don't need all of this, but I do think it's responsible. It's our responsibility to let our viewers know, and to let the people that know that want to get some guidance from us to know about what is happening with these prices and these auctions for these hot cards. And this is like, like CJ hates the fact that I'm even talking about this right now, because this guy knows our address and our shop and everything. But I was like, hey, we have to do this. So I said any type of shill bidding is disgusting behavior, not just what Xiao is doing, but what this guy is doing as well. It is absolutely disgusting. And the fact that he can justify it in his head and talk about it in almost like boasting about it. This kind of reminds me of, that movie, The Big Short. And then you have, they were talking to this like banker in Florida or something, and the banker was talking about no income verification loans to all these like strippers, and then the people that are doing the analysis like, hey, why is this guy like snitching on himself? And then the one person's like, he's not snitching, he's bragging, right? This is what this guy is doing,
Yeah. I
right?
can't believe he's openly bragging on a public forum, thinking that he can just get away with it. I guess he's been getting away with it, and that's why he's continuing
He's
this
so
behavior.
comfortable. Yeah,
He
he's
is
been
so
getting,
comfortable. He is so comfortable with this. And
yeah,
everyone is okay with it, apparently, in the group
yeah.
chat.
And as you can see, like this is some of his Instagram account. Again, I'm not telling you guys, please don't harass him if you know who he is, if you found out who he is. This is a choice that he's making. Hopefully, you can stop doing it and learn from this. This is not a hit piece on this guy. This is just to show you he's probably one of the many people that's doing exactly this for really hot products like ponchos, and some of the like all arts and maybe even gold stars. I don't know, but this is like concrete evidence I found from someone that's very deeply involved in the poncho market and openly talking about shilling the auctions to keep the prices up. So
Wow.
yeah, you can see that's why they say the rich gets richer. Go big or go home. I don't know about that. There's many
And
ways.
he's showing on US public auction houses like ZNG Emporium, which
Yeah,
we all are familiar with.
yeah, and we have a lot of respect for. Again, there's nothing ZNG can do to ban
They can't
all of
even
these fake
ban
accounts.
all of them.
And one of the things that he
Wow.
talks about, though, I want to like specify is he's saying like, oh, these auction accounts are being sold. They're not like eBay accounts with 0 reviews. The reason why you can buy them in like China is these accounts that are being bought are the accounts with like 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 reviews. So they don't look like shill bids to the consumer or to even the consigner because they're not like 0 review accounts. They sell these accounts in bulk, and these accounts are being sold and they have value because they have a lot of reviews on them. Like the number you see in the bracket
Right.
is like 150 or something. So it's
Yeah.
like almost impossible for James to spot these shill bids unless they end up not paying. So what he's saying is he gets 2 or 3 unpaid auctions a week and those accounts get banned and then he just goes and buys more. He's bragging about the fact that, hey, I'm doing this and there's nothing they can do to stop it. That's how flagrant this is, right?
That's crazy. And what C is saying, not a big Poncho fan, won't consider buying it. But again, this is just a little part of what's been happening. If you can shell bid on Poncho Pikachu, you bet people are going to be shell bidding on the other high-end cards. So
Yeah.
this is not the only thing that's affected. This is the only thing that we have concrete evidence to show you guys. So you guys are aware of that. This is really happening. And
Yeah.
this is not a good thing.
Pokey Card Zone, I believe this is Jason. He said, why not reveal his name to understand who not to support this type of business practice? Well, I would like to reveal his name, but CJ doesn't want to because he's done business at the shop and he knows our address and things like that. Again, like this is not a hit piece on this person specifically. It's about this type of behavior, right? So there's a lot of people like you probably find out from these screenshots who this person is, but again, like this is not about him. The fact that he's so comfortable and justified in doing this and posting it in a group chat with 500 people means that him and his buddies or his group of people that are poncho collectors or sellers are already like they're used to this type of behavior. And I'm here to call it out again. I'm not making any friends. I'm actually making a lot of enemies. And I know every time we do this, CJ gets like 10 1-star reviews. Right. And then there's people threatening to like do things
Not
to
to
me,
your
know where I
benefit at
live.
all. This is actually kind of scary.
It's really scary. And the fact that, I have a newfound respect after we started doing some of this for like guys like Rattle, because I'm pretty sure like he gets a lot of those as well. And
Threats.
I just feel like this is the right thing. Like again, this happened in April 17th, so like over 2 months ago. And I've been really thinking about it. I actually texted James about this and told him not to like make it public, but please ban this person or
ZNG.
not take consignments. And he said, okay, well, this guy apparently only consigned I don't know, less than 5 or 10 ponchos with ZNG, but it's not the fact that he consigns ponchos, the fact that he shills the ponchos, other people's ponchos on ZNG to make sure the prices don't fall or the prices continue to grow, right? So that's what we're worried about. You can't just banning him from consigning is not going to actually change much, right?
Yes. Well, wow. That is a big bombshell of a drop. Thank
Yeah.
you for warning us, for letting people know what's really happening at the expense of your, safety and peace of mind. And that's just crazy to think about, that that is really happening. And
Yeah.
the market
And
is being inflated and manipulated.
yeah, what we want people to take away from this is when you see these crazy prices go up, it's human nature, myself included. When I see some of the prices go up in some of the cards that I'm interested in, like some gold stars and some, I don't know, some cards that I'm like, some of the cards that are going crazy right now makes me want to buy them too, because it's human nature to think, hey, if I don't buy at this price, it's gonna go crazy. Like team up booster boxes, for example.
Yeah.
Every time it doubles, I'm like, oh man, I wish I bought more, right? So it's human nature to think like that, but you have to stop yourself from thinking like that and only pay what you want to pay for that product, especially in this market, whether it's ponchos or booster boxes or gold stars, whatever it is, right? Because you should take these crazy public auction prices and private sales with a grain of salt, because we don't know if they're being manipulated. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Now we do know for ponchos, but it's happening, I guarantee it, in multiple markets in the Pokemon industry, just like it has been happening in the crypto industry, in the stock market, like everything, right? So now that you know that this is happening with the poncho market, only pay what you want to pay for that card. Think about how much you want. And one of the things we talked about before is one of the skills, or one of the things that I exercise is, before this went up 200%, did I want it back then, right? Did you want it when it was cheaper and more affordable? If the answer is no, if you didn't want it when it was cheap, what makes you think you want it when it's more expensive, right? So
Right.
yeah, so don't fall into the hype. Don't look at all these big, like, I love collector, by the way, like collector posts, and it's not their fault. Again, they're just reporting
Yeah.
these sales. Like, don't look at these big posts with these big numbers, record-breaking sale every week, and think, oh, I gotta buy it. If I don't buy Mario Pikachu at 18K, it's about to be 40 or 50. No, it's not. It's not going to be 40. It's mass produced. There's thousands of PSA 10s, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't fall into the hype. But again,
Don't.
if you want to buy it for your collection and you don't care about selling it ever, then go crazy. But still, there might be better entry points for these cards in the near future.
Exactly. Okay.
All
Is there
right.
anything else you would like to share? And we can move on. And the next story is also another big
Yeah,
shock
so
reveal.
we actually have lazy duelist here saying, reminds me of my Lola friends. If I'm not mistaken, this is Thomas. I'll never forget this. Thomas is a pure collector. He loves his Pokemon cards. He barely ever sells unless it's like he has duplicates. And he came to my house one day. We were opening, I forgot what set it was. We were opening some late Sword and Shield. It was like a Sword and Shield era set, like launch party we host at our house before every set. So we rip a bunch of booster boxes with friends. And then he's like, Jesse, you're not gonna believe it. I got such a great deal on my Lola friends. I looked at it. I was like, how much you pay for it? He's like, I paid 13K. And I was like, buddy, 13K? He's like, yeah, I got such a great deal. Like, it was 20K just a few weeks ago, and now it's 13. And this guy even included a few raw gold stars. I was like, buddy, I hope you really like that card. But that's a crazy price. That was during the middle of the crazy waifu Japanese pump.
I remember that.
In 2023 or 22, 23, right?
Yeah.
So everybody knows what happened to that card. Oh,
Yeah.
We should actually talk about the Chinese Mew as well. So what happened with Lola Friends is it was used to be a Japanese exclusive, right? And then everyone's like, oh, that's such a beautiful card. It's Japanese exclusive. It's 20K. And then they reprinted it in Chinese and I believe, and was it in English as well? I can't remember.
No,
but
I think it's just Chinese.
And it dropped down to like, what? Like you can buy one for like 1,800 or something now, right? Like 90% drop. Same thing with the Chinese Mew. We can talk about this later, the buy sell hold, right? Chinese exclusive. This is only going to be printed like 1,500 copies in simplified Chinese. Nobody knows if it's going to be reprinted in another language for future sets. You don't
Exactly.
know
That's
that,
such a good point. That's such a
right?
good point. You don't know. Yeah. So
You don't
I know
know.
the
Like
prices for
whatever
those are
they
going
say,
crazy.
yeah, they might change their minds.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't know what's going to happen. You can't predict what Pokemon Center have in mind.
Yeah. So while it's a beautiful card, I don't know it's going to be like a 10, 20K card in a PSA 10 or CGC Pristine 10, some of the crazy prices I saw. But yeah, so very interesting reminder of the Lola Friends. Is very, very similar to what happened there. But yeah,
Don't overpay. You can get financially wrecked.
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Gold Star cards. There has been a huge hype and increase in demand in Gold Star cards. There's a hashtag that's been going around, Gold Star Gold Rush, and it seems like everybody is swarming towards Gold Star, Japanese and English cards. So I want to talk about a card that's one of the most iconic one in the hobby, the Japanese Gold Star Rayquaza from Clash of the Blue Sky. It's a big boy card with a low pop report of 95 and a PSA 10. Last sold on Fanatics for around 19,800, so almost 20K. So let's take a look at this card with the PSA scan. So at first glance, the card looks pretty perfect if you just look at the front scan. But when I took a closer look at the slab photos or the scans, especially the back, something didn't sit right. In the original PSA scans, the photo shows a bit of edge wear, and there are 3 different shadow spots on the back right side. It's hard to tell what exactly is going on from the scan alone, right? So let's take a look at more recent photo. So as you can see, I have arrows pointing to the defects. So you can see clearly there are multiple dents that's visible on the back of the card, along the side especially. So I stumbled upon this card because one of the fellow collectors reached out to me initially and asked my opinion about the card. At the time, he already paid for the slab and he paid over the market price, actually. He purchased it from Pallet Town's marketplace on Instagram. However, he wasn't sure what to make of the situation when Pallet Town pointed out the flaws on the back. So we asked for more photos, which are the ones that are showing on the screen. And those flaws look like dents to me. They're pretty obvious for me. Hopefully, you guys can see. There are other issues on the card as well, like the edge wear. But no matter how you look at it, this should not be a 10. I think we can all agree to that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It looks like it's lifted. It's not just like a little like nick on the side. It looks like it used to be whitening and then it got pushed down some way, or I don't know if it's extra material by looking at this, but it looks like it probably happened after the casing encapsulation. If you look at the scans carefully, you can still see like little marks, but I suspect they weren't as obvious as it is now. Over time, it probably like somebody did something to fix it, and then it got through the PSA grader when they graded it, and over time, it kind of like I believe like it started lifting up. And this is not like a super old cert where people say like, "Hey,
Right.
an old
7,
cert."
sir.
People didn't care back in the day. So there's probably a lot of cards that are this condition when it was like 2 cert, like 4 cert, 1 cert, 0 cert. Well, zero certs are usually pretty good. Like 2 certs, 4 certs are really bad, right? This is a 7 cert, and usually people see the cutoff point at around 6. Like usually after 6, that was after the pandemic. I believe the 6 cert was around like 2021, middle 2021. That's when they redid the slabs, and most people think the PSA standards, at least for vintage cards, have dramatically increased after 6. So this is a 7 cert, which is around late 2022, if I remember correctly, because I've been grading like throughout this process. So this is like a few years ago. This is just not. It doesn't look like it's the same damage as it looked in the scan. But if you look carefully, the same position still had a little bit of a mark.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
this shows that the grading companies aren't able to catch some of these altering of people that are doing these cards, and a lot of the big cards are being altered or fixed. I personally think if you were to just like use some moisture to like wipe off some dirt or debris in the back, or like
Yeah.
let's say there is like a warp, which happens with a lot of cards, like a lot of promos, and you just like try and
Mhm.
press it down,
Yeah. With
um,
weight.
that is fine. If it's just
Yeah.
like H2O and pressing it, just removing dirt that's not
The
that's
card.
on the card and just removing it. But anything with coloring, with trimming to make centering better, and
Mhm.
adding chemicals, like removing like creases. I've seen like some crazy stuff that
Oh
people
yeah.
claim to remove creases and stuff. I don't know
So
how that
crazy looking.
happens, but yeah, that's not okay, right? And none of the grading companies are doing a really great job at identifying it. And this shows that if you don't look carefully, even if it doesn't show when it first gets graded, it will show over time. It gets gradually worse, right? So this
Right.
happens with car restoration as well. When you have like a restored like vintage car, like over time it degrades and there's things that show up later. So it happens in every industry, not just
Yeah.
Pokemon. But
That's a
yeah,
good
just have
point.
to be really careful, not blindly trust the grades. And every human makes mistakes. And you
Yeah.
know, I just full disclaimer, I'm not like we're not doing this to trash PSA. As you know, I'm a large investor in tag rating, and even the machine
Mhm.
is constantly improving, and it's still
Right.
not perfect, right?
Yeah.
But the difference is like we show the data. So if you don't agree with it, you can point to exactly where you think the marks were taken and things like that. But even with tag, like it's not perfect yet. So every slab that you purchase, do look at the cards first, look at the scans, look at the report, and get as much information as you can before you make that purchase. And this is like a
Exactly.
multi 5-figure card. I believe in a PSA 10 is like 20K or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah.
This is
Last
the
sold
first
on
edition.
Fanatics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we wanted to show this. So it's been transacted a lot. If it does get transacted in the future, please do understand that this is not a PSA 10. Well, it shouldn't be a gem
Yeah.
mint mission card,
Right.
even though it's in that label. And some people might
Yeah.
say, I don't care, right? And that's you do you. That's okay. But as long as you're
Yeah.
transparent with the information, this is most likely altered, most likely fixed, and definitely not in a gem mint condition now. If I were to give it a grade, it's probably a 6 or 7 at its current state.
Yeah.
Right?
Six at best,
Yeah.
because
That's,
any dance with PSA, they automatically you know bring it
yeah.
down to a 6 or lower. But yeah, definitely the card should match the label. Don't just buy the label. And I personally would not buy the slab, but luckily Pellettown agreed to a return, so that my collector friend dodged a major bullet. So here's why he dodged a bullet. My initial suspicion was that the card was altered and repaired, right? And because the photos from the scan, like you said, in my opinion too, was significantly different from the photos shown on the slide. Initially, I didn't share my initial suspicion with a lot of people because I didn't have any evidence to make that claim. I just trusted my gut instinct. So I did my own research. I traced this exact Gold Star Rayquaza to one of the previous owners of this lab. And once we connected and got talking, my suspicion was confirmed. And here I will show you guys what he shared with me. So this will be a screenshot of our conversation, of the conversation that he showed me.
Kang said, buy the car, not the grading company. Rattle. And then your average player said, I think that's catch 'em all collectibles quote. I believe I said it first. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was saying it a long time ago. But
Yeah, we've been
either
saying this
way,
for as long as I remember, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, we're not trying to take credit, but the message is loud and clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Loud and
Yeah.
clear. Buy the card, not the grade. And what annoys me is the people that claim, hey, like PSA is superior. If it's not in PSA side, it's worthless. And the counter to that is even the people that are huge tag fans. There are people that
Yeah.
go around and say, if it's not in tag slab, it's worthless. So again, I have I've invested a lot of money. Like, I've vested interest in tag, and I'm telling our tag supporters not to say that because it's not true. I don't care if it's not in a tag slab. It's a beautiful card, right? Like, it's what
Yeah.
the whole point of tag is to bring the card out and take away the focus on the grading company, right? So whether
Mhm.
it's in a tag slab or the PSA or CGC or KSA or whatever, if it's a beautiful card, if it's in a great condition, that's what you should buy, not the label or the company. You can
Exactly.
have your favorite companies, but stop discrediting other companies just because that's not a company you collect, right? So just buy the card, not the grade and grading company. And we all have our favorites, but don't go around
Yeah.
telling other people's cards are worthless because they're not in your favorite
Uh,
slot.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's just ridiculous. But here you guys see the conversation of the deal that was made back in around June 2023. So you see that the seller is showing the buyer, the potential interested buyer at the time, the slabs with videos and photos, and then highlights of where the defects are. So you can see the little circles on the left side of the screenshot. And if you look at the right side of the screenshot, you can see the conversation. They met in person. So this was a cash deal done in person. And if you guys kind of look at the bottom of the conversation, they're saying something along the lines of card as Charizard, which has nothing to do, but underneath, meet you in the middle, is your card a repair card? So that's a few hours after they were trying to negotiate a deal on another card. So that's when the suspicion started. Supposedly, a little bit of background. When they met in person, the buyer inspected the card for a really long time under an LED light, from what I was told. And also, just note the date. Like I said, the deal went down around the beginning of June 2023. So we're going to take a look at the next slide. So it's a continuation of the conversation. So almost you can see in the reflection, he's using that LED light. So he made the note that said, the damage is becoming worse and worse. And the buyer isn't happy about it. So I guess he's a middleman. And he was flipping the card or either trying to source the card for another client. And so the original seller said, I had suspicion too, but I bought it as is.
Wait, so the person that is sending the screenshot is the original owner of the card, right?
This whole, yep.
Yeah.
He is one of the owners, but not the original.
Okay. So at this point, he's the owner. The person that's sending the messages, is that Palatown?
No, this has nothing to do with
This is
Palatown.
another. This is another
This is
middleman. This person turned it
yeah,
down.
this is another middleman. This happened back in 2023. So it was a long time ago. This was a deal done several years ago. And it traded hands so many times, so it's kind of hard to keep track of the exact history and the timeline of the card. But the conversation is here. It says it wasn't as serious when I bought it. So at the time when he was, observing the card with the LED light during their initial in-person meeting, the card did not look as bad as it did as now. So
Okay.
through time, as you can see in the conversation, but through time, it's looking like whatever surgery they did on the card is starting to reverse. So the card is getting worse.
Yeah.
And it's reversing.
Yeah.
And so the buyer didn't want to take the card and didn't pay for it and has returned it.
Yeah. A good analogy is, some like early plastic surgeries, like if you person gets a nose job and then it looks really good, and then in a few months, like it starts like falling apart, kind of thing. So it's really good for that photo shoot, really good for that grading session for the person to look at it. Oh, this should be a 10. Even though just looking at the scans, I don't even think it should be a 10 with the whitening at the bottom and still some marks, some lifts. I still personally wouldn't have given it a 10, like not even close to a 10, but clearly worked at the time, and then it's slowly falling apart.
Yeah. So the buyer or the middleman, could I return it to you for a refund? He asked, the seller. So I trust you that it's not intentionally, probably not you who repaired it, but reputation is important in the hobby, and I needed to explain so much to my client that I had nothing to do with it. I do not want to be tagged where I sell cards that are repaired PSA 10s with damages. So he sounds really worried
Mm-hmm.
that the card condition is getting worse and that, he wants to return it and offload it right away because buyers are aware of the signs of worsening damages, and it's going to continue to get worse. So pretty much the seller said deal is done. You check the card initially as you wished, right? And he said, I told you it was damaged and you accepted it and offered the price. I guess the seller didn't force. He feels that he didn't force the sale on this person. And so it's really doesn't make sense for him at the time to refund the card.
Yeah.
And he said he doesn't think he's being unreasonable, which, I kind of agree with that because the person who bought it did inspect it for a really long time and accepted a damaged card. That's a PSA 10. So should be aware of the risk.
Mm-hmm.
And then here are more of the conversation that occurred. Basically, they're just going back and forth because that buyer is really freaked out. He wants the card to be returned. So he's trying to explain himself. He said, I saw the damages, but didn't know that it was a repair card. And through time, like I said, the damage is worsening. Oh, we actually already talked about that. So he would really appreciate it if we could do a refund. It's an unfortunate situation. Could have handled it better. Pay a small fee for the trouble, buy you dinner. So he's trying to really convince the original seller to have the card returned. And then the response from the seller said he bought it from this guy. He didn't grade or repair it. So like I said, this card exchanged hands so many times. It's hard to keep track of the timeline, but the card is damaged and the damages are worsening. So he showed the screenshots and you said the guy, if you can follow me along in the middle of the conversation. And the seller, so the buyer said, yes, I know the guy, but it's irrelevant now that the card is confirmed repaired. A group from Hong Kong community and overseas, people are asking me, and this is going to become an issue. So it sounds like he's been keeping it confidential and would like to find a solution with the seller first, but at the end, it doesn't seem like the seller is willing to budge at all. So the seller is not going to refund the buyer, unfortunately. So that is a big financial burden. I don't know if you guys understand like the gravity of the situation. It's a 20 equivalent of, I don't know at the time what the market price for that, but
It was a
right
bit lower.
now,
I think in 23 is around like 12K, something like 10 to 12K.
Yeah, it's
I
like
think.
a huge financial burden.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he's tasked with, trying to offload it somehow. And remember, this deal happened as summer approach. So there's a change in seasonality. And in Hong Kong, the summer is hot and humid.
Yeah.
And the humidity is causing the worsening, apparently, or acceleration of the damage.
Yeah, but I do think new PSA slabs, like they went through some pretty extensive humidity testing, and it does pretty well to keep the humidity out. But the older ones do have a lot of damage. Like they're really bad with humidity. With the old slabs, like the pre two certs. So you've seen like this, like even the label kind of like crumple sometimes when the humidity gets through. But from my understanding, the 7 certs and new PSA slabs are pretty good with humidity. Well, I mean, there must be variance with that, but We don't know that for sure. But looking at this conversation, I kind of see the perspective from both the buyer and the seller side, to be honest. Like the buyer is obviously very frustrated. Clearly, he's
Yeah.
a middleman or runs a card business, and the buyer backed out, and he bought the card based on the buyer wanting to buy it, right? So he's in a tough situation. We've actually ran into that position more than once with CJ Shop as well, right? Happened recently when someone wanted to buy a $20,000 PSA 9 Gold Star Rayquaza English, and CJ bought it for him, and the guy's like, "Oh, I didn't see these scratches." Well, again, that happens quite a bit. So he's in a tough position. The buyer, from my understanding, showed him everything, was upfront about the damages, and the sale happened because the buyer agreed to it, knowing the damages happened. So it's also really hard for the buyer to prove that it was damaged, like, or it got worse, it reversed harder after he looked at the card in person, right? So I understand the fact that the seller doesn't want to reverse the deal because he acted on good faith, was transparent about the damages. So both of them, like, we're not doing this to say either of them did anything wrong. It's just very unfortunate, and this card is most likely doctored or fixed or altered. And the damages are, if you're seeing a card gradually getting worse from the scans that was taken in 21 or 22, that means it definitely has been altered and fixed, because cards don't just fall apart in a graded slab like that.
Exactly. Right? And they both agreed and confirmed that the card looks worse over time, and agreed that it's been altered. So they want to get rid of it as soon as possible, like a hot potato, because no collectors would want it. So my question is, should PSA deactivate the cert? I think PSA should deactivate the cert. If someone buys it, they might not qualify for the PSA guarantee payout due to the altered condition.
But I think
no longer considered a misgrade.
They have to take the card back before they deactivate the cert too, right? First of all, is to verify that this is, like, for sure this particular card is the card that's in question, right? And number two is you have to change slabs, because people still buy PSA 10s without looking at the scan. I don't understand how you would do that, buying an expensive card, but people still do. So I think the right way to do it is for them to send it back, PSA deactivate it, and also refund the current buyer, with the difference in market price. Let's say it gets lowered to PSA 5. PSA 5 is worth, let's say, $4,000. PSA refunds the guy the difference, like 10, 15K, or whatever it is, sends him back the card in the new slot. That is the right procedure.
That is, but I thought PSA would not do a payout for private sales like this, because it just opens door for, like, fraud attempts, right? So anybody could sell to their friends and then go back to PSA, claim that, oh, I bought this for over market, let's say 22,000, and I want PSA to do a guaranteed payout on the difference for its true grade. I just don't think that's happening unless it's done on, like, a public auction platform like Fanatics, eBay, or something like that, but not for, like, especially like an in-person cash deal or a private seller. Like, I would consider Peloton to be a private seller, so that's one example.
He's a well-known private seller.
And ZNG is affiliated with eBay, so I would consider that to be public. So I think if it was sold on ZNG, it would have been more verifiable and more convincing for PSA to do the guaranteed payout. That's what I think.
So Grounder said comics get around this by having statuses like conserved or restored, and notice changes are listed in the label. So obviously, if you can spot the restoration or the altering, it's an easy thing to do, but it's not. Unfortunately, most of these grading companies would have, like, basically had the authentic altered label. So PSA and all the other grading companies have it too. It's called authentic altered. But we're running into this situation because they didn't spot it, and most of the times they don't. Unfortunately, there's people that clean off the hollows, get scratches off, that color. And Rattle's made a video about PSA, basically ignoring clear signs of trimming on a PSA 10 first edition Charizard. So it happens quite a bit. If the company is able to actually see the altering, they would definitely label it. So there is a way for them to do it, but the problem is they don't spot it most of the time.
Yeah. So currently, this Japanese Gold Star is floating around on the secondary market, and that's why we want to warn the public that there's this card that is altered, that's graded a PSA 10, and comes at a huge premium because the label says PSA 10. I just can't imagine anyone paying a huge premium on a damaged, altered, expensive slab, and then they're faced with the possibility of deactivation risk, and it could be a huge financial risk, and they're left with holding the bag.
Yeah,
that's kind of what Smith Wright was saying.
That's right. All right, let's talk about some of the takeaways from this, and then let's go into the buy, sell, and hold, because I have a hard cutoff at around like 11:35.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to,
Yeah. Okay. So the takeaway is to make sure that you're requesting high resolution photos, right? The back and front, not just the scans from PSA, but get clear images in recent times, especially for expensive slabs.
Mm-hmm.
And also make sure the card itself matches the grade, the label grade. They should look like a 10. If there's odd wears or like damages, then ask questions, or at least step away from it. Don't feel pressure to buy it. Mm-hmm. And be aware of the card history. So if a card passed through many hands like this card, ask why. If you know the history. Some altered cards circulate fast before anyone investigate. So this is one prime example of what's been happening. And PSA 10s are not immune to fraud or restoration like this card. Obviously, some cards fall through the crack. They can be pressed, cleaned, trimmed, and altered with chemicals. So grading isn't a guarantee of the integrity of the card. And we talked about PSA financial guarantee limits. They may try to avoid guarantee, even though the label says 10, especially for private sales, right? So you could be stuck with an overvalued card. And then I would report suspicious slabs and certs to PSA, especially if you have confirmed evidence, history, or altered status, suspicion from previous owners. So this is an example. So we're really sharing this to help protect the community, warn others, stay transparent. And yeah, the hobby thrives when we hold each other accountable, being transparent, and help each other out.
Yeah, transparency is key. And this card's been transacted many times. And hopefully in the future, if it does transact more, the seller is able to disclose the true condition of the card, regardless of what label or slab it's in. Hopefully, one of these days, PSA can deactivate the cert and refund the buyer of the difference. But I understand PSA and all these grading companies are in a very tough spot when it comes to these things, when it comes to guarantees, because they grade such high volume. It's inevitable that there's going to be mistakes that slips through the cracks. And if people take advantage of those mistakes and fabricate like private sales, saying, hey, like, I really loved your card, Poke-san, sell it to me for 50K, right? And the market price is like 20K. Then if I just give you the money and then I show PSA proof that I bought it for 50K, technically they have to pay 50K, which is going to be very, very, very tough for these companies to set a precedent. So even though people have been saying it's really tough to get these payouts, I understand their pain, and I understand both sides of the story, where the buyer gets burned by inconsistency of the grading, and then the grading company inevitably makes mistakes and gets taken advantage of when it comes to private sales. And you've actually ran into a similar situation. Well, you talked about it with the what was it? The Crystal Guardians reverse Charizard, right?
Yes, I did talk about that.
The PSA 10 that was supposed to be a 1, and then the original owner was like, let me try something out. Trying to scam the
Yeah,
grading company.
he's trying to sell
Um,
it to his friends so they can claim,
yeah.
the guaranteed payout. So
Exactly. For the
does
people
happen.
that don't know, if you grade your card and let's say it mistakenly gets like a 10 and then it gets like decreased to a 5 because you're the original grader, there was no financial loss. You just thought you had a 10,
Right.
but it's actually a 5, then you're
That
not
much
entitled
different.
to any payouts
Yeah.
because there
Exactly.
was no transaction that happened, right? So let's say you
Exactly.
send your card back to PSA. Say, what did this get a 10? They give you a 6. They're not going to pay you back anything. But if you sold it to somebody else, that person bought it based on PSA 10 guarantee, then that person is owed technically owed the difference in the PSA 10 to the PSA 5 or 6 value, whatever true condition it was at.
Yeah. And I agree with Smith, right? What he had to say is to lean on your friends. So I'm glad that collector friend reached out to me for me to take a look at the expensive slab he had purchased, and I gave my opinion, which is what made him change his mind to return the slab. So it's good to utilize, your resources and ask your friends. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So your average player. So what factors would tag use to flag cards like this? Not a critical question. Genuinely curious. So what
Yeah,
tag is really good
question.
at doing, I know, is identifying trim cards and recolor cards because the machine is always a lot more consistent than the human eye. And from my understanding, when I was there, I saw 20. Like there's one day where they flagged 20 recolor cards. One of them was a Gold Star Charizard that would have gotten a Gem Intent, which is kind of crazy, right? That was deemed altered. And I think someone posted it on Facebook too. Apparently, it was previously a PSA 9, and then Tag identified it as recolored, rejected it, and then they sent it to CGC, and CGC had the same opinion. This was like a
Hmm.
post about it somewhere. I was actually there when that happened because they were like, "Oh, it was really close to a 10," but then the system identified it as a recolored card. And the same with trimming, because the easiest way to identify trimming is the finding out the dimensions of the card. Pokemon cards are very consistent with dimensions. So
Okay.
anytime a dimension of a card is slightly off, it will just being flagged as trimmed. And that's happened quite a bit as well. So I know for those two things, Tag is pretty good at catching. I'm not 100% sure about the other stuff. I'm not knowledgeable enough to comment on that with the technical side. And then your average player, I just wanted to touch on this real quick. He said, I hope you buy a 20K card that is that if it were to be fake altered, it shouldn't ruin you. I don't agree with that because I know a lot of people that put a lot of their net worth into their collections, and some people might be for their business as well, right? It might be 20K, might be like um, half of their working capital, and there is absolutely
Hmm.
nothing wrong with that. Or like I've seen collectors that have traded their entire collection for that one grail, that $20,000 grail that they have. If that turned out to be fake, that means they just lost their entire collection, right? It's happened during the prototype scam.
Very
So
detrimental to
to say
collectors.
that, hey, if you buy a 20K card, you should be rich, like that, I don't agree with that. That's the same thing as what people say about like, oh, if you buy like $1 million property, then you have to be super rich. Well, some people live in cities where $1 million is like their entry point. They have to buy it. They spent their entire savings on a down
Yeah,
payment for a house. So don't ever judge people based on what they buy or how much they pay
exactly.
for their things. Like, let's not pocket
Hmm.
watch. And I've seen so many examples where people are stretching themselves to get that grail piece in their collection and then they get burned really hard, and it's devastating. It's devastating for a lot of
Yeah,
people. Like, I'm very financially like comfortable. If I buy a 20K card turn out to be fake, I'd be pretty devastated. Like it, I'm
yeah,
not gonna end up on the street, but it's still gonna
right.
hurt me a lot if I get a
Yeah,
20K fake card, right? So
yeah, same. I would feel very, very, I mean, I would probably just cry in a corner.
yeah,
A
exactly.
20K slab, regardless of if you're rich or not. But yeah, I feel really bad for whoever bought that Japanese Gold Star
Mhm.
Rayquaza PSA 10 that's damaged. Someone did buy it. Peloton did sell it. So we don't know what's going to happen, but you know,
Yeah.
they were transparent upfront about the damages.
Yeah, and Palatine has shown us the messages between him and the buyer, and he was very upfront about the damage, showing very clear pictures and videos of the card being damaged, and the buyer still chose to buy it. So there's nothing wrong with that. Again, there's some people that only care about the label and not the card. I don't agree with it, but collect how you want to collect. And yeah, unfortunately, that person, well, I mean, maybe he doesn't care, but ends up
Maybe.
with a card that's a PSA 10 label, but in way worse condition. All right. I'm super excited about this part. Buy, sell, hold. So at the peak Pokemon market, June 2025, we can come back to this in 6 to 12 months and see if we were right or wrong.
That'll be fun.
That would be pretty fun. And I just want to preface this by saying this is not what, like, how do I say this? This is us turning off our collector brains, right? Doesn't matter what we have. Well, I mean, some of the examples are some of the stuff that I'm doing, like buying. So you can interpret it as like Justy's trying to pump the thing, but it's probably not true, because we're going to talk about a lot of things that is a significant portion of my collectible portfolio that I'm telling you to sell. So we're turning off our collector brains and giving you unbiased advice in what we think would be the most optimal decision financially for you to make right now, based on these different categories. And there's like little subcategories within these bigger categories, like vintage sealed, vintage slabs, and things like that you might want to buy this, hold this, and sell the other thing. But it's based on our personal experience. And again, it's not financial advice. This is our opinion. You can listen to why we're doing these things and then decide for yourself. Okay.
Excellent.
All right, let's start with vintage sealed. So we put this in kind of like the same category. So vintage sealed, I put in some the WotC stuff, first at base box, Skyridge, first edition Team Rocket. I want to hear your thoughts first. What would you do? Buy, sell, or hold?
Buy, sell, or hold. If I had any, I would hold. I will hold these vintage sealed, just because they're getting scarce, and there's not a lot of WotC vintage. They're being opened by streamers, and I'm also a collector. Some of the boxes that I owned, like I owned a Team Rocket first edition vintage box. I did eventually open that on a stream. So at the time, during the peak of the pandemic, I did sell, in a way, packs off individually. But as of today, knowing how, I think the amount of sealed are just depleting year by year, and it's just going to get harder to find. I would keep them. I would hold them, and I would just wait.
Yeah. I mostly agree. And this will be a theme when we talk about sealed product in other eras as well. We're in an unprecedented time where products are being opened like never before, right? Like vintage sealed, the people that held it for 20 years, it wasn't being open like it is now with the live streams, the rip and ships, with the crazy amount of money in that, like vintage boxes are being broken every week. It's and we know this is not going to get reprinted. Some people have a conspiracy theory where Pokemon's printing it somewhere and just dishing them out to the influencers. That is really crazy. Until I see some proof, that is the most ridiculous thing I've heard in my life. So even though the price points are really high, I don't think they are a sell right now, just because, some of the boxes are staying relatively stable. I think the good indicator is the base set unlimited box is now selling for around $25K, when it was like around 12 to 15 for the better part of 2 to 3 years, from late 21, 22 to 24, right? And if you remember, during the last boom, the base set unlimited box, I believe, reached as high as 36K as well. So I think we're just getting back to that point. But there's a lot less of these boxes around than it did 5 years ago. So I don't think you should be actively buying them, but holding is the right choice here for vintage steel. And again, like we're gonna talk about this. I think there's a lot of value in what we're about to talk about in the next like 25, 30 minutes, because I talked about this before. Even though when we say like, yes, it's pretty sensationalistic when we talk about, oh, the crash is coming. The crash is like a pretty general term. It doesn't mean every single asset in this whole economy is crashing.
Right.
It means there's a mass majority of the things that was going up like crazy is going to go through like a major price correction. We're not talking about 10, 15%. We're talking about sometimes 40, 50, 60, 80% here. But there's always products that you can find in any market that's worth buying that people aren't talking about.
Yeah.
Example, I bought a lot of Sun and Moon stuff during the crash of 21, 22, right? I remember Sun and Moon XY. I remember I bought like a lot of Roaring Moon, Primal Clash booster packs for like $3 or $4 each in 2021. This is not like 6-7 years ago. This is right after the boom when everyone was saying, hey, like we're at its peak, Pokemon's dying, everything's dropping 60-70%. I bought like hundreds of these packs for like $3 or $4. What are they now? They're at like $50, right?
Yeah.
Granted, I opened most of them. But
I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, technically. You're supposed
exactly. Exactly. But what I'm saying is you can find products that's good to buy at every market. And we're going to talk about some of that today. But also timing the market when it's going down, selling them when it's at its peak and buying them back in a year or 6 months. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So we're not, if we all have unlimited money, this wouldn't be a problem. We just buy everything and keep. Unfortunately, none of us are in that position, or very few of us. That's why we talk about this. And hopefully in 6 to 12 months when the market shifts, people can come back and say, hey, I'm glad I watched Poke SMP on June 23rd. Okay.
Wow,
going
back
nice
to
right?
Oh my gosh.
Vintage slabs, first step base, gold stars, crystals, and shinings. Okay, I want to hear your thoughts. And you can break this down. You can say buy this, sell that, hold this. Like, what are your thoughts? I'm talking about these are specifically
Right now?
these 4 segments that I consider vintage English grails. Yeah.
I would not buy any of them right now. I would wait to buy them later on when there is a correction, 20-30% correction, just because the market is hot right now. And I mean, all the prices are spiking. Even like the first edition base set Charizard, that's PSA 8, are selling for well above like 12K, which is crazy. And the PSA 9 was selling for 30. And my goal is eventually to get to a first edition PSA 10 Charizard, but this is not the time for me. And for Gold Stars, like I said, I would wait on everything. And I know you have those Gold Stars in your possession. What would your opinion be?
So I put a lot of these are, well, the first 2 are all mine. The third one, I had a PSA 10, a CGC Pristine 10, a Tag 10 as well. So I personally think it's a hold for first at base. The price hasn't moved that much. For the Charizard 10s and even the 8s and 9s have moved up quite a bit, right? But in general, I still think first at base is a hold because it's not being talked about as much as you would think at this peak market. Gold stars, and like I said, this is contrary to my financial benefit. I do think it's a really good time to sell your gold stars. And again, this is not my decision because like these cards, my pristine set, I'm most likely not going to sell ever because that's my collection. And I personally don't care if they go up and down. I've gotten offers upwards of over 300K USD just for my pristine top 1 gold star Rayquaza, right? So if I were to sell it now, like somebody will pay $500,000 for my half completed gold star pristine set. But I'm not going to sell it because that's my personal collection. It's not inventory. It's not even an investment. So that's not what I would do, but I'm biased, like taking myself out of the equation. I do think it's a good time to sell gold stars because you've seen astronomical rises. And I've talked about gold stars being undervalued for the longest time because people don't
You really
really
did.
understand how rare they are and how limited, because it was during a time, there's a few things that happened for gold stars to be as valuable and as sought after as they are now. The artwork. Fukuda is an amazing artist. The first time that you see Pokemon jumping out of the frame, right? Before like the full arts and everything.
Right.
And I personally think it's super cool. It's probably even cooler than the full art. So the artwork is gorgeous. Second, during 04 to 07, when it was being produced, it was at the low point in Pokemon. So things were being printed very, very low quantities. So the sealed products are very scarce, and they're a lot of them are open already. And also the third point is the rarity aspect. It's so hard to pull these gold stars. People don't remember during the Watts era, there's like 2 rarity tiers pretty much. Well, I mean, there's like the uncommons and commons, but for the hits, there's your holo rares, and then there's your like non-holos, right? So you had like 12 holos per box. That means your first edition Charizard, there's like 15 was it 15 holos in base? You have like a 70-80% chance of pulling your Charizard every time you open up a base set box, right? So it's not hard to pull. But later on, you had the crystals, the shinings. That's like a rarity tier above the regular holos. That made it harder to pull. So that would be equivalent to like the EXs during the EX era. That's harder to pull than the regular holos. And the gold stars are in a set with holo rares, EX rares, and even above that. So with EX Deoxys, I think the average pull rate for the gold stars, which there's 3, there's Latias, Latios, and the Rayquaza, is 1 out of every 2 to 3 boxes. So you probably pulled 2 gold stars per case of booster boxes. So it's probably the equivalent of opening up a modern day Sword and Shield box and pulling an alt art, right? That's how hard it is to pull. And you might be thinking, yeah, I see people pull alt arts all the time, but during that era, because Pokemon's not less popular, it was being printed in the quantities that are like maybe 90% shorter than it is now, right? So you see a lot of these PSA 10 pops being under 100, like in the some of them are in the teens, like Torchic and something, and Latias. So they're like in the teens. Latias is 22, Torchic is 18, I believe. Yeah. So that's why they're so expensive. But what I'm seeing right now is not only are a lot of these cards, like the non-popular gold stars, going like the PSA 10 just sold for 22K. Even the 8s and 9s and 7s have doubled or tripled in price in the last few months. And when that happens, there's always going to be a correction in the future. So if I were not a collector, it's actually a good time to sell a lot of your 7, 8s, and 9s. Maybe 10s, but 10s, like, they're so scarce. You'll always have set collectors that want to buy them. But if I were someone that had a bunch of 6, 7, 8s, and 9s, this is a really good time to sell them, because the market is going to be cyclical. Right now, everyone's talking about gold stars. Last year, nobody was talking about gold stars except for me and you. Right? So I would sell it. And Smith said, Jesse, did you pay $300K for the raid? No, I did not. But someone's offering $300K to buy it from me. For the last part, so Shinings, I think similar, but I would probably, it's not as hyped up as gold stars. Some gold stars have went up like 3-4x. Like the Mewtwo went from 4,000 to like 18K. Right? Oh yeah. So great time to sell. But if you were a collector and you can hold it long term, the gold stars are not going to experience like a 70-80% crash. It might be 30-40%. But if I were like just pure financial brain, I would sell it and buy it back in a few months when the market corrects. Yeah, I do want to say for the Crystal Charizard, it's a great time to sell. That card doubled in value. The PSA 10s were going for 15K for the entirety of 21, 22, and 23 as well. There's a reason why this card being as iconic as it is, and as you know, from a set that's as sought after as Skyridge, to be cheaper than most of the other grails in the hobby, and that's the fact that it's a lot easier to grade. Being easier to grade and having higher print quality is actually a detriment to the single card and the slab values. If you look at the PSA 10 pop for the Crystal Charizard, I believe, is like
Yeah.
294, right? It's almost 300,
More.
which is a lot higher than all the other vintage grails you talk about. The Rayquaza is Gold Star Rayquaza is 48, right? Even some of the more like populous PSA 10s, like the first edition Charizard PSA 10s, and 124. This is close to 300, even though the print run for Skyridge is a lot lower. And the gem rate is 18.5% or something. So almost 1 out of 5 Crystal Charizards that are graded, and this is from like 20 something years ago. Almost 1 out of 5 gets graded a 10. So that's a lot higher than the 1 point something percent for the first edition Charizard, or like 2%, and then like 0.4% for base unlimited. This is almost 20%. So it's graded very, very well. Anyone that pulls one from a box, I would say you have probably a 50% chance of getting a 10. So the population will potentially get higher. And then the 9s being regraded might get 10s as well.
Yeah.
So
True.
30 something thousand for this that was being sold in the last couple months, I think will be a high point for the near future. I don't see the potential of that card reaching 50K. So
That's fair.
I mean, we actually sold one of our we sold our tag 10 for 35 recently.
Oh wow.
Somebody really wanted it. It wasn't like for sale, but the guy really wanted it, and then we asked 35 and he paid right away. I'm not saying it's gonna crash to like 10K or anything, but I just don't see the upside financially for that card unless you want that for your collection. So we're just talking about being unbiased and from a third party angle looking at it. I think that's a sell.
Yeah. So you think the Sky Ridge is overvalued right now, but was undervalued 1 to 2 years ago. So it's a good time to sell since it's getting up to the point where it's going to peak.
Yeah. And I think it's already
a plateau.
You can see it. People are selling, like private sellers and people that are at shows are selling it for 27, 26 now. Like they're marking at 27. That means it's probably transacting at 25. So you've seen the peak for that card. Yeah. True. But if you can still sell it for 30K, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I did sell my lower grade Gold Stars like a month ago. So
yeah,
I agree.
I think it's a smart thing to do.
Good time to sell. Vintage slabs.
Yeah, there we go. Like this is like some of the other vintage slabs, right? Like there's some regular fossil and jungle stuff, and there's some of the more sought after ones like the first set Lugia and the first set Umbreon. Like, what are your thoughts? Buy, sell, or hold?
I would probably sell them off, to be honest. So the first edition Lugia, PSA 10, I feel like I've been seeing it double and almost 2.5x. I mean, I would sell it to take profit and put it into something else. And the Umbreon, I personally really like the Umbreon, so I would keep it. I know the card has been seeing crazy price premiums and spikes. I mean, for me as a collector, I would keep it, but I know some people would sell it to put into something else. Because like you said, we don't have unlimited funds, and not everyone is a Umbreon fan because it's kind of an overhyped Pokemon.
I do believe that too. I was gonna say everything else is selling and holding are both okay. I think the Umbreons. I do think there will be a shift in what's like the most popular Pokemon right now. All the kids want Umbreon, just like how all of our generation wanted Charizard. So I think all the Umbreons are slightly overvalued. That includes the Neo Discovery. That includes the Skyridge Umbreon going for like over 10K. And so I think those cards is a good time to sell. There are still a lot of undervalued vintage grails for like for the PSA 9s that are going for pretty cheap though. So there, if you look carefully, there's still a few buys in there. But we talked about this for the longest time. It doesn't make sense how a jungle PSA 10 Flareon Pop 100 is like $1,500 when the Moonbrown was like $4,000 at the time. Well, now I think it's doubled in price. It's still like, in my opinion, okay, because based on how rare it is, but also selling it, taking a profit is okay too, because I don't see it going much higher.
Oh yeah, the fossil Gengar really popped off, huh? The Gengar cards are getting increasingly popular. I feel like they're more in like the limelights right now.
The Gengar as well. I remember the Skyridge Gengar. I had a PSA 10, CGC Pristine 10. I bought both of them for around, I think, 4K 2 years
Oh,
ago, and now they're like 18K. And also acquired the only, in my opinion, that oh shoot, falling apart.
wow. Uh-oh.
There we go. So the only pristine tag Gengar.
Wow.
So I paid multiples of a PSA 10 price for this. But this is my personal
Yeah.
collection. I believe this the cleanest Gengar, Skyridge Gengar in the world. But yeah, it's definitely, if you weren't collecting it, it's a good time to sell them. But holding some of the low pop PSA 9s, I think it's still okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Vintage Slabs Japanese. What are your thoughts?
Um, I think when the market cools down, these cars are not going to be highly sought after, and they're not really the promo exclusive Japanese. So I would sell them
Hmm.
into the hype.
Yeah. Wow, focus on selling everything. So I think though, okay, so I have slightly different perspective on this. There's so many Japanese alternatives to like English Grails that are so much cheaper that I personally think it's still a good time to buy some of them. Like the Umbreon, for example, the Neo Umbreon Japanese, that is actually the Umbreon rookie card for Pokemon. I don't think they printed it before this, right? And the English version is over 10K. Umbreon's such a popular character. The Moonbreon was at like 3,500 at one point. This is its
Mhm.
grandfather rookie card. The only thing that held it back was it being a lot easier. The Japanese holos are a lot easier to pull because they're guaranteed. Some of them are guaranteed per pack. Some of them a lot more available, right? So the PSA 10 for the Umbreon, Neo Umbreon, I believe is like 800 and something or 900, which is
Yeah.
super high for vintage, right? But if you compare it to the Moonbreon, that's at 17,000. I I think $500 or $600 for that card is a good buy. I think it's a bit more expensive now, but I bought a few copies at like $450, just a few months ago, and I think it's a no brainer. Or like maybe less, maybe like it's like 600 Canadian, it's like 400 and something, US, right? And so you can't tell me this artwork is not great because the English
Oh,
version is over
yeah.
10K, right? So
Yeah.
it's a gorgeous artwork, in my opinion, better than the Moonbreon. But that card is still at a few $100. So instead of spending high four to low five figures for some of these cards, I will actually go back and buy the Japanese counterparts.
Counterpart.
No counterfeits. No, don't buy prototypes.
Don't buy fake
No
cards.
prototypes. No fake cards. But the
Yeah.
Japanese counterparts for sometimes less than 10% of its value. Right? I'm just still thinking from a collector's
Yeah,
point of view.
you
Maybe
definitely are.
not like I see them going up in value, but
Yeah.
it's your money better spent on the same artwork that is in its original language earlier release for like 10% of the price and most times. Like the Neo Lugia, for example, a PSA 10 is still like $600, $700. The
Yeah.
PSA 10 is what? Like 45 to 50K,
Crazy amount. Yes.
right?
Yeah. So
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 yeah,
I
that's
actually bought the Neo Discovery Umbreon, and I traded it at a value of like around 600, and last sold is around 1K. I thought about selling it, but because I really like that card because it's got a lot of historical value to it, I did keep it as a collector side of me, but I just feel like these Japanese cards are not as liquid, especially at shows. People would rather buy the English alternatives. And when the market cools down, I think there's going to be even less demand for these Japanese cards if you want to flip or move them at a later time to uh, rack up some profits to put into your other collection goals.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think you're right as well. I think from my perspective, like I said, that's more of a collector
Yeah.
point of view, buying a cheaper alternative. But in terms of financially, yeah, it's probably still pretty high compared to where it would be in the future and where it was before. Okay. All right, next one is Japanese trophies, grails, non-set cards. So we're talking about like the play promos, the first tournament trophies, like the
Oh my
illustrators, like
gosh.
yeah. So
Yeah.
these guys, and I've been
Wow.
talking about yeah this card being kind of
Wow.
like I gotta say, I've been talking about this card being like a bit overrated, being like the Grail, the hobby, obviously $5.3 million Logan Paul sale, which I heard he apparently sold it again for $6 million to private seller buyer. But I personally think right, some of these cards are at such a low point after the prototype controversy that they're pretty good buys. Like the Illustrator at 600K to $1 million is not a good buy in my opinion. But there are some of it that fell under 200K. At the end of the day, this is still illustrated by the original designer of Pikachu, right? It's by Nishida, and
Mhm.
apparently this card that I bought was Nishida's personal copy, and I can't like apparently like
Wow.
I can
How did you
talk
get
about
that?
it
Oh, maybe. Okay.
with friends, but
We don't have
technically
to. We
like
can go into
uh,
it in another.
yeah, but that's why I wanted to buy it. But
Wow.
some of these cards at the end of the day are I think worth a lot more than 150K or where it was selling just a few months ago after some of that crazy Akabane situation because even with the actual copies, it's still at like 50 to 100 copies in the world and it's super iconic, designed by Nishida. So I personally think at under 200K, the Illustrator is a really good buy. Um, it's not to pump it up. I'm not saying it's going to be $500,000. Just my perspective. Again, like I talked about gold stars and I told people to sell it. I have more gold stars than you and your friends combined, right? So again, this is not to pump anything up. I'm just saying from my perspective, at that price point, I think it's a pretty low risk situation unless there's another 100 illustrators that pop out from Alcabane's basement. In that case, maybe a little lower. But yeah, I don't think your average collector going after these cards. Okay, so let's just go over it really quickly. I do think everything else is probably a hold. The play promo Umbreon I think is a sell. I don't think that card. I personally maybe it's just my bias towards. I think Umbreon's just overhyped at 200K or 180K. I think that's a little bit too much. But mostly I think holds, and I do think the Illustrator at under 200K is a buy. But yeah, if people don't want to listen to some expensive cards like this, then we
I
can
think
move to the next.
90, maybe 80, 90% of the population might not be able to afford these, I think.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, I feel like those are grills for a lot of people that if they can achieve it, they probably would go for these cards if they have the financial means to do it. But
Yeah.
you would hold.
Yeah, I would hold. I don't think the Illustrator is gonna go under 180 or 160,000 was like the lowest point for some of the near mint copies. I don't think the number one trainer is getting enough attention actually because I think that card actually should be the number one card in the hobby above the Illustrator just because that's like it's got
Mm.
historical significance to it, like the first tournament specifically. And I was bidding on that card, but I felt like it was some interesting things going on. So I stopped bidding at like around 220K. I think it sold at 320. That card, I don't think is going to go up that much, but that I don't think it's going to go down just because it is the first trophy card for the first tournament, first winner of the tournament. And also, I think for these cards, there's so many extra copies out there. The ones that do have pedigree provenance should be getting a premium because that means that came from one of the winners, not one of the extra copies
Right.
that Cabana or somebody else held. Right?
Right.
So mostly holds. All right, let's move on to the next part. Mid-era slabs. What are your thoughts?
Mid-era slabs. Okay. So I was not really involved in or heavily involved in collecting during the mid-era. So I don't have a lot of, memories attached to these cards. So while these are very low in pop and I think they sell for really high premiums at a PSA 10 because they're hard to grade. If I do own these cards, I would hold the mid-era slabs.
Hmm.
Because I
Okay.
feel like all the new sets are focusing back on like black and white, the megas. They're kind of going back to some of the mid-era, revisiting
Yeah.
some of the mid-era cards, and I feel like those are going to be um, more in demand in the future. So I will
Okay.
hold them.
So I personally think I would sell all the Team Rocket cards, whether it's modern or vintage or mid-era, just because they were so hyped up based on the release of Destined Rivals. Now it's come and went. The hype is dying down. So whoever paid the crazy 4 or 5x prices, like the 10, 8K or 9K Rockets Mewtwo and things like that, I do think there's going to be a significant correction in the future because Team Rocket has been around for a long time. It wasn't hyped before, it wasn't hyped after, and then all of a sudden, like right now, like those cards, I think there's some manipulation going on too, and people talking about, hey, like Team Rocket's like Destined
Yeah,
Rivals, a bit underwhelming in my opinion. So I would say like the Team Rocket stuff, that specific part of the market, I would sell anything that's that's being correlated to like what's happening now. That like that craze will pass, and those cards should be, in my opinion, their sells. Um, Again, if you collect them, doesn't matter. We're just talking about financially. For
yeah.
this graphic on the left, the Call of Legends Shiny Vault, and again, I'm not hyping this up because I have a bunch of them. I actually don't. I have two of the Suicunes because I love Suicune. It's a Pop
Mhm.
31. And I own two of them, and I thought that was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it's
I
cool.
just think this set is underappreciated,
Co-op,
under
like,
talked about because of how rare it is. Like people don't really understand. Some of these are like pop
yeah.
8, pop 10. To me, this is almost like the second printing of Gold Stars. They're shiny Pokemon. They're in a shiny vault from one set that's like very
Mhm.
underprinted Call of Legends at the end of 2011. So these cards in like even 8s and 9s, in my opinion, are still buys because not a lot of people are talking about them. I kind of see them as mid-era Gold Stars. Well, Gold Stars are kind of mid-era, but like later Gold Stars, right?
Mm.
I don't have them stashed away somewhere. I'm pumping it. I'm actually looking for it right now. I posted it on my stories. Like, I want to look for these cards. Nobody responded to me because nobody is selling their 10s, right?
Right. Yeah,
So
they're so hard to grade and come by and to source.
I'm personally looking for them. So if you have a few copies, you can message
Sell it to
me.
Jesse.
I think the artwork is gorgeous. And what people don't realize is the artwork for this set came from the Japanese shiny present campaign. So those cards are like trophy promos, literally like lottery cards. Over 1 million people applied for the shiny present campaign, and only 1,000
No
people
idea.
got the Suicune, Lugia, and the other dogs. Like there's only 1,000 copies printed in the Japanese version, and this is directly translated from the Japanese cards to the English cards, right? So this has significance. These in
That's so
Japanese, this
interesting.
Suicune is like 5, 6K in Japanese. I pay like 9K for mine. Never gonna sell it. Don't
Wow.
care.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Now that you said that, they sound pretty unique, low in pop. It's something that's going to be overlooked, and that's something that I might look into as well. Thank you for that.
yeah. All right. All right, let's move on to more modern stuff where people are more like I
Well
always say
versed
bring a
in.
lot more value. Yeah, okay. All right, modern sealed. You go ahead. XY Sun and Moon era. I kind of put them in one bucket because I put
Yeah.
XY Sun and Moon, and then Sword and Shield, and then Scarlet and Violet. So talk to me about XY and Sun and Moon.
Ooh, XY. So I just bought a XY Roaring Sky booster box about 2 weeks ago for around 1,800, and now it's, for whatever reason, it maybe there's some manipulation going on, but it already spiked to like 2,500, or at
Yeah,
least above 2,000. I saw a sale for 3K for
yeah.
that booster box, which was
I
crazy,
don't
and I
think it
don't
was
believe
paid
it.
for that one. I don't think I was paid for. Yeah, but yeah, you're
Maybe
right.
not.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So I'm glad I was able to buy that booster box about 2 weeks ago. Some of these XYs are undervalued, overlooked, and so that's why they're seeing like there's a little bit of an increased demand right now, because going back to the new sets that are coming up from Pokemon, the Megas from the XY Evolutions. And for Team Up, I would hold Team Up just because I don't know, for whatever reason this box just keeps going up in price. I think you mentioned it before. And Cosmic Eclipse is also just going up and up and up, along with Unified Minds, Unbroken Bonds. Is that Lost Thunder? Yeah, I mean these are all like above 1K, including XY Evolution. So I
Yeah.
think there's just, a decreasing supply due to all the streamers opening packs, ripping thousands and thousands of pack every day. And there are multiple streamers across different platforms like Drip, Whatnot, eBay Live, and Fanatics Live. I mean, I think these are going to be scarce, and I would just hold. If you
Yeah.
have them, I would not sell them.
Yeah. So this is like the older stuff of the modern era. Most people see the modern era being post XY. I think that will change very soon. XY might be considered vintage or mid era soon because XY started in 2014. That's over 10 years ago, right? So it's still modern right now, but in 5 years, I think we'll be looking at it very differently. But XY and Sun and Moon, I think they're kind of different to me. I think for some of the XY stuff, like Growing Skies, we had a few booster boxes at CJ's shop, and then the prices weren't updated. So during our anniversary trip a week ago, I believe one of them, both of them sold around like 1,600 or something, 1,500, 1,600. And that was after those boxes were sold, we looked at the prices and it was like 25, 2,600, 2,700 sold, but we sold them for like 14, 1,500 USD, which the prices were just updated like a month ago. So I understand in a market that's growing, like you're gonna miss out on some expected value, and that's okay because we bought it a lot cheaper a few months ago. So for some of these XYR sets, I do believe it's a good chance, a good opportunity to sell them. But like the tag team stuff, like Unbroken Bonds, Team Up, Cosmic, Unified Minds, I believe these 4 booster boxes will be looked back as some of the best sets ever in Pokemon. And they're not like printed a lot, especially like Team Up, because I think that was around the time Hidden Fates came out and they put all the printers on Hidden Fate. So Team Up had a really short print run. Yeah. So we sold 2 Team Up boxes for like one for like 6K, one for like 7 or 8K as well, like within like hours. So I personally think I wouldn't go out of my way and buy them right now. But for sure, it's a hold. If you have one, hold. I think in a few months there might be a retrace, but we've never really seen a retrace from Team Up. I was talking about Team Up being the buy like a few, I would say for the last 2 years, because comparatively to Evolving Skies, even though it's more expensive, but it felt a lot more organic, the growth of Team Up, right? It's barely ever hyped. It doesn't get opened that much in the streams, right? Like everyone's opening Evolving Skies. Every streamer is talking about the Moonbryon. It felt like the growth just happened because a lot of people wanted to buy it, right? It was kind of like a niche thing for the longest time. And I was like, hey, like once the streamers or the people start talking about it, it's going to grow like crazy. And one of the catalysts was Alex Ketchum and Deep Pocket Monster doing their should I open it to the field and minding my own business. Like it's those 2 guys are the goats. I love them to death, right? They started opening Team Up blisters, and people did see the Latios being pulled, and that's kind of like what really brought a lot more attention to Team Up from the casual collectors. But I felt like it wasn't talked about for the longest time during its ascent. So right now we are seeing crazy prices. Like they're pushing 5 figures now, and this is a set from 6 years ago, right? I don't think it will be like a 20, 30K set box in a few years. I think the growth will at some point will stagnate. So I don't think it's an active like buy unless like you really want it in your collection. But I definitely don't think it's like a sell off or whatever, because these sets, the tag teams are so beautiful. The more older they get, the more I think they're so beautiful. Like it's not even that long ago, and I feel nostalgic looking at it. It's so unique in a way where people might be seen from future generations as like the modern gold stars. It's like a time, like a blip in the time where the cards were just so beautiful that people just wanted them. And it's not just the alt arts, right? It's even some of the regular tag team GXs that was like $1 or $2 cards that are being sold for crazy. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the sealed, I do believe, is a firm hold. For some of the XY stuff like Roaring Skies, I do think that's a sell.
Agreed.
All right. Modern sealed, Sword and Shield. Everyone has Sword and Shield in their closets. What do you think?
I'm sure. I have a bunch sitting in my closet. I think my biggest Sword and Shield position is Evolving Skies and Fusion Strike and Crown Zenith. And then I have Brewing Stars, Lost Origin, of course, Astral Radiance, obviously less than my Fusion Strike and Evolving Skies. But I do have, at least two cases of each for the other ones, Chilling Reign. But I don't have any Battle Styles or Vivid Voltage just because those sets kind of traumatized me during the time of when they saw a crazy price hike of 200 for Vivid Voltage right when it came out of the gate. And now it's just kind of going back to where it was. So I never got back into that particular set or Battle Styles. But the rest I'm holding on to 100%. I'm not selling.
Okay. So we're going into like some of the more liquid stuff, the things that people have in their closets and the ones that you can still find inventory at stores. Sword and Shield is a great era. The alt arts are beautiful. I personally, this is what I do, right? So for Evolving Skies, I talked about it multiple times. In late 23, well, in 22, when CJ and I got our allocation for Evolving Skies, we opened our entire allocation. Like, we ripped everything. Maybe had like 2 cases at the shop, and then we ripped like 15 cases ourselves. Right? That's how much we loved it. And that's how much of a hobby the shop was for us at the time. Like, we know we're losing money, but we love the set so much. We opened so much.
Yeah, it's a great set.
But I think a lot of people remember me talking about buying Evolving Skies at the end of 2023. I would say that was when it was around $300 to $350, and that's when I knew. When I really like analyzed this, when I really went hard in some of like the investing aspect of Pokemon TCG. I bought like 16 cases, almost 100 boxes of Evolving Skies when I was at 300 and something. Because to me, it was inevitable that set was going to go up, because that was at the point where I felt like the reprint won't be coming. That was 2 years after release. Remember that 2 years after release usually is a cutoff point for the reprints. And should we buy or sell it? To me, what I've been doing with Evolving Skies, if you look at the market data, market trend, it goes through an insane period of growth, right? And then it stagnates for 6 months. It never really see like a crazy dip other than the 2022 reprint. But since it's been out of print, you don't see crazy dips, but you do see long periods of stagnancy, right? So what I've been doing is, like I said, don't be afraid to sell it. Every time I see this crazy, insane growth, I sell a few cases. Because I know, even though it's not going to crash, but there's costs on capital. So there's a portion of our Evolving Skies that's just part of our like collection, like portfolio. But there's also a few cases at CJ shop at all times where like we know that it's still going to grow, but it's probably going to stagnate for 6 to 12 months. That's how I see it, like at around $2,000. Right. So the cost for that capital tied up in Evolving Skies, and I have like maybe multiple of 6 figures tied up in Evolving Skies at this point. Selling it and then buying into some other sets while it's going through that period of stagnancy is really good for that set specifically because it's so liquid. I sell cases of Evolving Skies at like 100% market. It will get sold in like a day.
So liquid. Yeah.
And I can always buy it back for around the same price, in my opinion, in 6 months when I know it's going to go on another insane run. It always goes on crazy runs and then goes like this and then goes on another crazy run. So I think we're at the peak of this current run. I would say sell some of this stuff, like Evolving Skies, Fusion Strike. I think they're in the same bucket, like really sought after Sword and Shield sets. I don't think they're going to crash because, like you said, they're out of print. They're getting open like crazy, open like never before, right? But there's also a cost of capital of them not going up and them being so liquid. I think if I were to sell something, I would sell my Evolving Skies and Fusion Strike cases first. So
That
that's
makes
what I
total
would.
sense. Yeah, I really
Yeah,
like the point that you made. Yeah, so average player says nobody ever has gone broke taking profits, which I 100% agree. I
that's right. That's right.
That's yeah, yes. Evolving skies just have so much potential long term. So like in my mind, I'm holding it long term, and I already kind of made that decision for myself. What makes sense for me, so I'm going to hold it long term. But the plan in the back of my head is that I may let one case go in the future to take some profits and
Yeah.
put it into
Uh,
something else. But as of right now, I don't need to to to
Yeah.
sell
If you
them for
don't need the
anything.
money, you can hold it. It's
I
not the wrong
Yeah,
decision to hold it. But if you need some money doing whatever you want to invest in, whether it's, buy a car, put it into the stock market or a down payment for your apartment,
yeah.
Evolving Skies is a really easy sell right now.
Super
Crown
liquid.
Zenith, I've been screaming like how much I love this stuff for the longest time. And they were sitting at Costco's because people were tripping over them to get the 151, right? And that was one time I was like, hey, you know what? I think Crown Zenith is better than 151. I bought so many of them. I do think this set is I still can't stop myself from opening Crown Zenith because how
So
great the artwork is. The cards are not worth that much, but the artwork is so gorgeous. Galarian Gallery, like that Suicune is my favorite modern card. Is my favorite Pokemon Suicune. It's currently still like 100. You can still buy them for like 100 and something, in my opinion, even though it's printed a lot. That might still be a buy. At the time, I was buying them at 40, $50, right? Um, but this is such a great set. There's still so many great sets in the Sword and Shield era, sealed product wise. That's still, I think, a buy and or a hold. All
oh
right,
yeah.
let's move on. Scarlet Violet. What are your thoughts?
Scarlet and Violet. For SV1 through 4, I will hold, and anything greater, I would sell you if you have, a lot in your possession. Um, but I wouldn't buy them at the inflated price. So
Hmm.
1 through 4, I would hold. I wouldn't sell them. Like Paldea Evolved. Have you guys seen what Paldea Evolved is doing? It went from, I maybe went spike up pretty quickly. It went from 160, 180. That's I bought some more at this price point, and then all of a sudden it went up to 200s and now 250. If you look at the current TCG player market
Yeah.
price for this set, so I think Paldea Evolved has potentials. I don't think it's going to get reprinted. It's out of the reprint window, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me that particular set is a hold
Mm-hmm.
unless you need to take some profits and roll it into something else. But if you don't need the money, then just hold.
Yeah. What about the rest?
The rest, I would if the opportunity presents itself at MSRP, I would try to pick some up just to have some, just in
Mm-hmm.
case. Because as we know historically, reprints does not cause a price crash. I
Okay.
don't think the booster boxes are going to go down to $100 where it used to be.
It's not going to be $100. Okay, so I have kind of a different perspective on this. I
Okay.
agree with the 1 to 4. I think it's a hold. How they evolve, like those sets, probably not going to get reprinted. Everything you see on this graphic, post Surging Sparks. So it's talking about Surging Sparks, Prismatic Evolution, Sharing Together, Destined Rivals. They're all sell everything like at these prices. They are anything that's I would say after Temporal Forces is a sell, and I'm gonna tell you why. I don't even think they're holds right now because the same thing that's happening now is happen. Same thing that happened in 21 is happening now, and this is when the hype goes crazy. Pokemon needs 6 months of headway before they can ramp up the production because those printers are printing other, like they're basically outsourced to other companies. And then for them to take it back, it takes 6 months before they can actually print them at full capacity. And that's what they did at the time with Battle Styles, with like Champions Path, with even Hidden Fates, with all of Vivid Voltage, Darkness Ablaze. Those sets not only crashed, but it took them 4 or 5 years to even recover to their previous. Like Vivid Voltage is still not at where it was in peak market 2020 or 21, right?
Right.
So not only do I think we should sell them at the current prices, at the current market, even if it presents itself at MSRP, I don't think it's a buy because it will stay around MSRP for the better of the next 4 years. And I firmly believe that because Pokemon will print these sets to the ground. The Journey Together and Surging Sparks and Destined Rivals, one or two of these sets will be the Darkness Ablaze and Vivid Voltage of 2025. Prismatic Evolutions, I think, is a lot better set than Champions Path, but it will get printed to the ground the same way they printed Champions Path to the ground. Charizard was the hottest thing at the time. Everyone was tripping over themselves and getting elbowed to the face, getting the Champions Path ETBs at the time. Same way that they're doing for Prismatic Evolutions now. I do think it's going to do better than Champions Path, but I don't see it going up anytime soon. So I'm talking about the opportunity cost of even carrying these products in your portfolio for the next 2-3 years at the very least, right? I think they're going to be widely available because of how much their Pokemon's going to print them, and past this crazy peak market going through, the down market in the next 2 years. These sets, you will get crazy deals where people give it away at not $100, maybe $150, $140, $130 a box. We are already seeing people dumping their Destined Rivals ETBs they've gotten at the sites, at GameStop, to us for under MSRP. Like people bought them at London Drugs post tariff MSRP is like $100, right? Canadian.
Okay.
They're selling. We bought there's tons of people selling them back to CJ for a 10% loss. It's already happening, and it will continue to happen for the next few years. So I would say sell everything.
So you think they're going to go under MSRP? So like 100%. Prismatic Evolution, Destined Rivals, you're pretty confident that.
Well, I'm not going to say they're going to go way under MSRP. Like in terms of the market price, but you will get the opportunity to buy them in bulk from people that need the money at under MSRP in the next 6 to 12 months. It's going to happen. Prismatic, like I said, it's being dumped at Costco. Pokemon is committed to print the crap out of these sets, and they always do. But people always think they already said it. Why aren't they doing it? Why is it still so scarce? Like I said, it was a 6-month lag. And we're experiencing that now. And in the future, that will cause a long or midterm effect to these sets. It always does. Vivid Voltage, Darkness Ablaze, Rebel Clash, Champions Path, Battle Styles. Think about what happened to those sets. That's what's going to happen here. Those aren't bad sets, and neither are these. But I would not touch them.
I would still buy some and hold. Sell some and hold some. Prismatic Evolution, just for me, because Prismatic Evolution demand is so high for this set. I know that it's going to decrease, but I feel like there's going to be investors that are in the space that now knows that Pokemon seal investing is very, lucrative, and that it will work, and they will buy it up because they all have cash ready on the sideline, ready to buy them up and scoop them up whenever they dip below a certain threshold. And it would be hard for us to pick it, like the average collectors, to pick it up around.
Yeah, this is against my best interest to say this, because we are still carrying a lot of these products at CJ Shop. This is the majority of the sealed product that's being sold at the shop, right? So it's against my best interest to say this. But I just want to keep it 100, right? Like this person said, it's Prismatic Bundle from Costco, a hold. It's a hold in terms of it's not going to go down in price. You bought it at such a beautiful price, that's never going to be below the Costco bundle prices. That you can be sure. What we're talking about right now is pure financially. You maximize your profits by selling it at the current market price right now. and it's not going to go higher than this. So you have the opportunity cost of not putting your money somewhere else from holding. Let's say
Sure.
you have like
That I
$5,000,
can agree with. Yeah.
right? You hold $5,000 of prismatic evolutions. It's not going to be as good financially for you as if you were to like sell that and put it towards some of the other stuff, like some of the XY Sun and Moon stuff, even that is out of print. And
Right.
well, let's talk about sets. We can go into detail in a future episode, but there
Yeah.
are some stuff from 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago that still has the potential of becoming the next Roaring Skies and Primal Clash of like 2025. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Opportunity
We
cost.
won't have
100%.
too much time, so we're gonna go into modern Japanese sealed. I
Oof.
personally don't think any of them is worth buying. Other than we were talking about shiny treasures, because I bought a ton of shiny treasures, knowing that set is like a really good set, because Powder and Face is a really good set. I love the shiny vault. I love the alt arts from that set. You have the Charizard, the Bubble Mew. I still think, well, I bought a bunch of them at like $27 USD. Nobody wanted them. They were begging me to take them. Right now, it's at like 60 or 70 now, right? Maybe that set is
Yep.
still a buy,
70.
but everything else, especially the modern stuff that are the thing with Japanese, that they print like crazy, and their reprint window is really weird. They can print things like 5 years after release. So I wouldn't invest in Japanese sealed. That's my personal opinion, especially modern. What about you?
Yeah. I have not been buying any Japanese booster boxes. And actually, I've sold a lot of my Japanese booster box position just like recently, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, modern slab. So we're talking about alt arts and SARs. What do you think?
My gosh, that Umbreon. I think it's catching second wind. It was selling for 2,600 last sold, and I think everything is sort of kind of going back up a little bit. I mean, have you seen what Paldea Evolved Magikarp is doing?
It's crazy. Same thing that's happening with the ponchos are happening with that Magikarp. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, I 100%. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And the Gengar and Mimikyu, PSA 10,
Yeah.
selling for 5K. I mean,
Crazy.
I know I had a story post about this card, and there was a sold listing that sold for 5K for this card, and then later they reposted that, so it was a fake sale. And but I think it worked because it's selling for 4K now. It used to be like a 1.5 to 2K card, like not too long ago.
Yeah. I personally think this entire lot is a sell too. I've talked about it so many times. The Moonbrown having 16,000 PSA 10s and counting. 17,000 shouldn't be where it's at. It's catching second win. Great opportunity for you to cash out. The Prismatic and the Terrestrial Festival evolutions. I combine like both Japanese and English for this because they're similar. Those cards are so easy to pull for Japanese. SR is guaranteed for every box that there's just like an unlimited supply of them. So I don't think they'll ever be like expensive, right? So for the PSA 10s, the regular gem grades, unless it's like a black label or pristine or tag pristine, I think their sales, again, this is pure financially. I think I would have a set because there's such beautiful cards in my collection. But in terms of financially, I think they're all sales.
Yeah. You don't want to tie all that capital. I think it's going to stagnate. I don't think it's ever going to go up in value if that's what you're thinking.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. And the alt arts will come back down with the PSA 10 variants very soon. People understand for this era of slabs, the PSA 10, CGC Gem Min 10s, and even the tag Gem Min 10s, like these cards are printed very well. The regular Gem Min grades are not going to hold up value long term just because they're like unlimited supply of these. The conditional rarity will play a part in the future. The people will see like the black labels, the CGC pristines, the tag pristines. Those cards will become more investable financially because there's not 17,000 of them. So I think very soon that the Gem Min grades like the grades I mentioned, BGS 95s, PSA Gem 10s, CGC Gem 10s, Tag Gem 10s will be seen as like, a raw card being held in a case kind of thing in the future. That's like obviously it sounds very pessimistic. I have a lot of these cards, right? I have a lot of these cards. Like I've showed multiple times.
I have a lot of those cards.
Yeah, I think they're gorgeous cards. I just don't think they have any investability in the future. So great time to sell them. We talked about selling them like 5-6 months ago and putting it into vintage slabs. There's people that came up to me and said, I changed your lives. He said, I sold all my alt arts, awesome. Bought all the vintage stuff, bought all the gold scores. I made 20K. Like somebody said that during Collecticon. I was like, oh man, this is why we do this. Greatest thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sell those alt arts, high pop cards, realize your profit, and roll it into something else that are overlooked and undervalued.
Ooh, okay. Last category, English and Japanese promos, modern promos. What are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, these Vanko Pikachus are just clinging on, and they're not seeing any signs of weakening, I feel like. They've been holding strong for the most part, the Vanko Pikachu anyways, but super high in population from what I understand. Yeah. I do have a few of them, and I do, plan on selling if I need profit. But at the moment, I'm sitting okay. So as a collector, I do like, the Pikachus. And so the collector side of me is holding. But if you need, maximize your profit, then I think selling is not a bad idea.
Yeah. I feel like I'm like such a negative Nancy today because people are like, oh, Jesse thinks Pokemon is all going to go to zero. It's not true, but I'm going to kind of sound like that here. The Van Gogh Pikachu, I believe
it's going to crash.
37,000 PSA 10s. It makes the Moonbryon seem like a gold star. I would sell it, man. Keep one for the collections. I think it's a beautiful card. I have one in our collection as well. But extra copies, I would sell them all. And ponchos, we kind of already talked about it. If that wasn't a sell signal, I don't know what else. You got people openly talking about shilling auctions in a 500-person group. That's how comfortable these people have gotten. So the ponchos, even though they're beautiful cards, if you want to collect them, keep them in your collection forever. But financially, I wouldn't put my money into these cards at the current record-breaking prices. And the $69,000 sale at Cancel Shark was purchased by the same guy that was openly shilling auctions.
What?
Yeah. So
I did not know that.
Yeah. Wow. We're not here to say like, please don't harass this guy. He might be a nice guy outside of this, but this behavior I cannot condone. And I have, against my best interest, I know we're making enemies here. Please do not buy these cards because you think they're going to go up in value and they're going to have other record-breaking prices. Buy only because you want to buy them. You want to collect them. But financially, I would sell them all. Sell all the ponchos, all the gray felt hat Pikachus. There's a lot of people holding a huge bag. That's why it's in their financial incentive to keep them at the high point or even more higher in the future. Or even higher.
For sure. 100%. Yeah. I mean, all they have to do is just buy a account from
Is Cancel Shark enabling it? No. Well, I don't think Cancel Shark did anything wrong. He's a consignor, right? So he lists the prices for whatever the sellers want to list it at, and then the person buys it. He didn't do anything wrong. He's not shilling auction, so it's not Cancel Shark's fault. It's this person's fault. All right. Yeah. Okay. I actually have to run.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us for this live podcast, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you all for joining us again.
Thank you all for joining us, and I hope this you can look back at this video and be like, hey, I got a lot of value from this in 6 to 12 months. And just remember, only buy the cards that you want to buy, pay the prices you want. Don't blindly follow these crazy sensationalistic topics, like these crazy pictures that you see on Instagram. Record-breaking sale every other day. Like, forget about the record-breaking sales.
Yeah, don't fall for it.
look at your cards, whether it's a PSA 10, CGC 10, Tag 10. Look at the data. Determine for yourself whether or not you want that card, regardless of what label it's in.
Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts.
All right. Thank you
Excellent.
guys.
Okay,
All right.
take care, everybody.
Take
Make
care,
sure to
everybody.
subscribe.
Bye bye.